I have in front of me two Logitech G502 Proteus Spectrum mouses. The one on the left is different than the one on the right. I modified the one on the left to fit my needs. It has the G500 rubberized wheel mouse, scroll wheel, and also I modified the microswitches to become silent essentially, because I need to have silent gaming in the middle of the night when people are sleeping near me. And I'll go over just how quiet the one on the left is compared to the one on the right. The one on the right is just a completely stock G502 that has not been touched yet. Just from clicking on it, I mean, just take a look. You can hear there's a difference between, this is the modified one, and then the stock one. I mean, just off the bat, you can hear there's a distinct difference between the two mouses. But we want to see exactly how much of a difference the two mouses have. I have a Radio Shack sound level meter that I'll be using to give you a kind of scientific, I guess, result of how these two are different. So first up, we have my modified G502. You can see this with the rubber wheel that I pulled off of a G500. And I have a Radio Shack sound meter at the bottom. You can see when I'm having this conversation, it's spiking between 60 and 60 some, hanging around there. And if we go completely silent, it's registering nothing, which is good. So I'm going to first start by clicking like a madman, and let's see how high the number goes. So we're seeing about 51 decibels with the modified G502, and with the completely stock G502, I mean, just from the video you can hear that it's a lot louder, but it's hitting about 56, 57 decibels. And I will show you how it's done. You might be wondering, how the hell do I do that, right? Well, in this video I'm going to go over exactly the steps I did to modify my microswitches to make it a little quieter, and also show you how to remove the wheel. If you have a spare G500 laying around, you can swap in. But essentially the procedure is you take apart the mouse, you open up the microswitches, and you install a piece of teflon inside the microswitch to reduce the gap of the travel for the switch. I mean, the distance that the switch has to travel is essentially how much noise and tactile response you'll get. So I find installing piece of Teflon tape, the stuff you use for air hoses and stuff, that stuff works really well. It's really thin, and you can install maybe 2 to 3 pieces depending how many, depending on what your taste is really. And I'll go over that and start taking this one apart. Alright, first thing you're going to want to do is get yourself a nice toolkit. I'm using this iFixit kit, got it on Amazon for like, I don't know, 30 bucks or something. Comes with all these little bits and extensions you need, has everything that you could possibly want in computer electronics. But I'm going to start with the smallest flathead, or a small flathead. And you want a clean surface to work on. I mean, ideally this glass surface isn't really good because you can lose track of your pieces. But yeah, okay, first off, go ahead and remove all the rubber feet. There's you can see little notches right here. So there's going to be, I believe there's a screw in here, 2 screws here, a screw here, and then 2 screws in here. This should be the same for the core or the Spectrum, whichever mouse you're trying to modify. So let's go ahead and be very careful and lift this up. The feet, it's like layered with 2 pieces. I'm not looking at the camera, I'm trying to look at, so maybe the focus isn't very good. It's kind of hard to do both, but the feet have 2 layers. There's the foam backing, which is the glue part to the plastic, and then the actual, Teflon part on top. So what you want to do is try to get underneath both pieces at the same time without separating them in half. And if you have a brand new mouse, it might be a little difficult to do. Let's see, did I do it? Yeah, I got it. So just go ahead and pull it off all the way. You shouldn't worry about ruining these feet. You can order a new set if you really need to. But these are reusable. If you take them off, they just might be a little warped depending on how you removed it. Let's go ahead and set it aside. And then, let's go ahead and remove this. Don't need this right now. This little triangle piece here needs to come off. Same exact thing. Just be very gentle with it. Don't tear it. And then the last piece here. Here's a little cutout right here. Just go ahead and get in there and pull it out. Oops. It's a little rough, but we're okay. Alright, now that you have all the feet removed, there's going to be exposed screws that you can remove, so I'm going to go ahead and switch my bit out to something appropriate. Let's go ahead and use this one. It also helps to have a magnet tray of some sort to keep track of where your screws are at. This one here. I'm just afraid of running out of battery on my camera. This is a fully charged battery and it's already 68% down. But it's okay, I have another battery charging. Three, and the last one. Okay, 4. Okay, so now this is a tricky part. To separate the shell, I would start the back, and again I would go back to the small flathead screwdriver bit. Kind of start the back somewhere like maybe around here, and just gently, very gently, you don't want to bend the plastic or anything. Just get the plastic in there and then just kind of wedge it up until you hear like snapping noises, and that's usually when. There we go. So got that open. Just work your way around. The next anchor point I like to use is right here. Let's try opening up a little bit more. And here, just snap it up. Okay, there we go. Alright, so at this point, it's hinged on the very front right here. And it just requires a little bit of force to separate the clips. So I'm just going to go ahead and I'm just pulling the pieces apart and pulling the upper shell towards me while I'm removing it. There we go. Okay. The piece that just fell out here is the little daughter board used for the left thumb switch. If it falls out, no big deal. You can just plug it in straight here. And then close the retaining tab. I mean, looks like it was halfway out to begin with, so this mouse wasn't put together correctly anyways. It's supposed to go like this. Put the ribbon in here. The ribbon goes in there. And then you slide this piece into its little slot right here. And that's it. And then I would close the tab right here, just push it down, and everything's fine. Okay, put the shell away. I mean, if you're here watching this and you wanted to just do the wheel mod, we can start with that first. I mean, it's really difficult to open the switches with the wheel in place anyways, so I would remove it regardless. The switches you want to look at, well, at least the ones I modified, are this one here for left click and this one here for right click. I mean, these are the two buttons that I click on the most, so these need to be quiet for me as much as I can. This one, the sniper button, I'm using this for a push to talk in games, so I need to kind of figure out how to open this switch later. I'm gonna order like from Chinese vendors on eBay, Amazon. They sell these switches separately, so I probably will buy one because they're so tiny I can't open it on here. I tried lifting it up, but I ended up almost lifting the entire package off of the PCB, which is not good. You'll break the traces and ruin the entire mouse, essentially. So let's go ahead and remove the scroll wheel. Cables are in the way. Alright, scroll wheel is really easy. I would, you can continue using this piece. I mean, if you look carefully, there is a retaining pin up here. So you need to back out this retaining pin to the left. And let's just go ahead and remove this board. It's going to be in the way, I think. You want to push the retaining pin out. So pull it out and then just shove like a screwdriver into this hole gently and then work the pin out like that. Go ahead and remove the pin all the way. And then from there you lift up. There's going to be two springs right in here that control the bounce back from when you press the middle click button, so don't lose those. In fact, I would remove them immediately. So just go ahead and gently lift this up. There you go. And if you can, I have, where's my tweezers somewhere? Tweezers. Alright, so go ahead and pick up these little, so guys, springs. The camera won't focus, but take those springs and put them somewhere safe so you don't lose them. Alright, so next thing you want to do is get the flathead screwdriver bit out again and remove, well, pop open the first microswitch. If you haven't opened these microswitches, if they're brand new, they're going to be rather difficult to open. The way I do it is I just kind of wedge, it's kind of hard to see, I wedge the flathead right about here at the edge, and then I kind of twist it open. It's easier for you to see when you're trying it yourself, but it's a little tedious, and this is the most time-consuming part in my opinion. Maybe that and installing a Teflon tape, I'm not sure. But also you want to be careful when you're opening this, because if you don't lift the cover off completely clean the first time, you might end up dislodging the microswitch inside, which is kind of difficult to reassemble if you need to. I'm just going to pause it here and open it. Okay, and I'm back. I think I have the cover off a little bit, so I'm at the point where I can just lift it up. I had to get in really close because the camera's in the way, so just very gently lift up straight. And this is the microswitch. Oops, should have taken out that little plastic bit, didn't notice it. Fell in somewhere right there. So there's a little white activation switch, activation plastic. Don't lose this. Set it aside. So the way this switch works, I don't know, it's going to be hard to see with the camera. So the way the switch works is there's a little bridge here that the white piece likes to click on, and if you click on it here, you can hear the clicking. The clicking is coming from the travel of this little plate between the upper and lower contacts. The upper contact is neutral, the bottom contact is connected to the PCB, so whenever it connects, it registers as a click. So to mitigate the problem, what you do is reduce the amount of travel that the switch has. I did it by placing a piece of Teflon tape in between the upper contact and the plate itself. I've seen other people use memory foam, which doesn't work in my opinion. It has it would reduce your tactile feel. People use Vaseline, which works well for about an hour, and then it starts clicking again. So I came up with just using Teflon tape there, and it seems to work really well. I tried electric tape at one point, but it's too thick. It doesn't work very well. So I'm going to go ahead and cut up some pieces of Teflon tape. Okay, I got my Teflon tape out. So this is just the same stuff you use to, it's a PTF thread seal tape. How thick is this? 1/2 inch by, well, this is 1 inch length, but I mean, it's just this stuff you can get like Home Depot for sealing air hoses and water hoses and whatnot. So luckily 1/2 inch is almost the perfect length for running across the entire microswitch. Maybe a little bit long, but you can always just kind of, you know, work with it. And I don't recommend using scissors because scissors tend to bend the tape and stretch it. It's really easy to stretch. So I'm using single disposable razor blades that I use for, you know, shaving. And you can experiment with how many layers of the Teflon tape. I found 2 to be pretty good. So I'm going to go ahead and cut off 2 small pieces here. Okay, 1, 2. Alright, now the tricky part is layering them together, because they tend to stick on your fingers and everything you touch with it. I mean, that's the point of them. They're supposed to act as a sealant. But it's very gently. You can either put them one by one on top of the switch, or layer them beforehand and then stick them inside the switch. It might also help to use like Vaseline on the contact to keep the tape from moving around while assembling. And then this part I might just have to turn the camera off again because I can't navigate my fingers with the camera in the way. But let's see how far I can get with this. So I like to use my flathead to push down the microswitch a little bit gently, just so I create a little gap, and then I like to stick this right underneath the microswitch tab. I mean, essentially you want something like this. I guess I see it's sticking to the stupid tweezers, but it's okay though. I mean, this isn't, I'm going to fix this, but ideally you want the 2 pieces of Teflon tape spread evenly across and not, you know, messed up and completely. And then once that's done, you go ahead and close it up. Okay, when you're all done, it should look something like this. The white balance looks a little off in the camera. It's too shiny in my room, but focus isn't working either. But it should be layered nicely across the top. This might take several tries. It's very tedious. The first time I did this, it took me maybe an hour per switch. But now I've gotten them down to maybe about 10 minutes per switch, depending on how much of a bitch the Teflon tape is being. So once you have that on there, it serves 2 purposes. Like I said, it reduces the gap on the travel, and then secondly, it acts kind of like as a dampening for the metal plate. So when it flexes, it doesn't flex as much, and or it dampens by the Teflon tape. It's a really weird modification, but if you really need to have quiet switches, I mean, this is the only way that I found that's easy to do. So we're going to go ahead and reassemble the microswitch, put the little plastic bit back inside of its housing, and if you didn't take the springs out of your mouse for the wheel, do it now, because we're going to flip this thing upside down. So go ahead and put it upside down. This is going to be hard with the camera in the way again. I might just pause it and do it myself, but kind of put it upside down like this, and then assemble it like this so the little white thing doesn't fall out. Okay, and the cover's back on. I mean, right now what I would do is plug the mouse back in and then go ahead and move around and click this to make sure it actually right clicks and activates. If it doesn't, then that means the assembly was wrong. The Teflon tape could be touching the bottom contact so it doesn't activate correctly, or it's not, the little plate is not touching the bottom contact at all. Actually, it's not completed circuit. So I'm not going to go through troubleshooting on how to fix it. You're on your own for that one, but just make sure it works again before continuing to reassemble. If you are replacing your wheel with the older generation G500 with the rubber grips, I know some people hate this wheel because it's too slippery. I tried it myself for the first time, and I was reading reviews, and people were saying they don't like the wheel, and they've been doing the wheel mod to modify it. So I went ahead and tried it out for myself, and I agree. I don't like the metal wheel. It looks nice, but it doesn't feel great. So if you were to do that mod, this is the time to do it. If you have an older mouse, just same procedure. Undo the pin and pull it out. So go ahead and put the springs back in. Okay, we have the wheel back in. Just make sure it clicks and activates and it touches the little metal dome switch down there. And then it's just reverse procedure. Put the pin back in. You want to assemble it with in this orientation. Make an upside down U, essentially. Put the pin back in, slide it, lock in place, and we're all good. I forgot to mention, if you are doing it to the other side, the left click, do it before you assemble the wheel, because it is impossible to open this with this in the way. And then reassembly is just the reverse. Go ahead and plug the daughter board back in, slide it in here, and then as for the cover, all you need to do is just snap it together. I know I didn't plug it in. Let's go ahead and close it up and just snap it together, and everything should be fine. And don't forget to reinstall the feet, the screws, and your door. Okay, everything is almost back together. I think snap, there we go. Okay, so if you're having problems and your mouse doesn't feel like it's clicking anymore, I would just try to reduce this camera, zoom out a little bit. Just make sure there's no gap in between the these two metal plastic pieces. Just close it down tight, and then everything should be back to normal. Yeah, and then just go ahead and put the screws in. Okay, screws are back in. Go ahead and put the feet back. Like I said, don't worry about ruining these. If you're very concerned, I mean, you can just go ahead and order ahead of time or set replacement feet. But you should be able to reuse it again if you're very careful removing it. This mouse is still very clicky, you can hear in the backgrounds, because I didn't really modify any other buttons besides putting that one piece of Teflon in the right click button. So, I mean, this is with one piece of Teflon installed, I mean, it's still pretty loud. I'd go ahead and put a second piece or even a third piece in there. That's why I found that works the best. But the great thing about this is the tactile feel is still present, and you get, half reduced noise when you're doing this. I mean, all the switches can be modified the same exact way. I believe every switch on the body, on the top, uses the same Omron switch. It's just the ones on the side use a special blue one that's tiny, and it's difficult to open. So I'm gonna have to figure that one out later. And this concludes the end of the video. We're back with my modified original mouse. Nice and quiet. If you like the video, go ahead and click the like button. If you don't like it, go ahead and leave me a nasty comment. I'm glad to read to see what you think. Thanks.